I am Mr. Stanford, or Coach Stanford, if you don't know me yet. And today I'm super excited to get to talk to y'all. So, all my students know this, but probably not all of you know this. But I actually went to Hyde Park from the time I was 2 years old until the time I graduated from high school. And so when I say I know exactly what you're feeling right now, and I've sat exactly where you are, trust me, I have. I've been in chapel in the middle of a long week where lunch is coming up and you're tired and it's really hard to listen and pay attention and take something out of it. But I would really encourage y'all to tune in for a little bit. I'm going to get y'all to lunch on time. I'm going to do my best. So this month in chapel, we have been talking about integrity and all of the things that go with integrity. And so before I started writing down what I wanted to talk about, I looked up a definition. And basically, it all boils down to doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And that's really hard to do. I struggle doing the right thing even when I have people watching me, even when I can get in trouble, even when I know that I'm doing the wrong thing and people are going to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing, it's still hard. So it's that much harder to do it when no one is watching me, right? And so I looked at that definition and I thought about it. And then I went to Proverbs, and I found a verse that kind of tells us what integrity is. And it says, "Let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Turn your foot away from evil." So this verse gives us a nice little definition to go along with integrity. But when I have a definition, I need an example and a story. And so in a second, I'm going to read us a story about Jesus, a story from the Bible that tells us more about how he showed integrity and what he did so we can kind of apply it to our own lives. But to start off, I want to tell you what I think is one of the coolest things about Christianity, one of the coolest things about Jesus specifically. And that's that while he was 100% God, he was also 100% human. See, the God that we worship, the God that we serve, has gone through every single thing that we've gone through, or something similar. See, he gave up heaven, which is perfect and beautiful and awesome, and there's no pain. And he came down to this earth and he experiences what me and you experience every day, and that's that this world is broken, and that it's sinful, and we're tempted, and we feel lost, and all of these different kinds of emotions. Jesus came down and he felt. He went to school and he made friends, and while doing that he felt happiness and joy and excitement. And while doing that he also felt maybe some anxiety, some stress, loss and temptation. You see, he felt all of these things. And through all of that, he showed great integrity in everything that he did, and that he never did it a sin. And he never sinned a single time because he had a mission. And his mission on this earth was to stay perfect. I don't know about y'all, but I have a tendency to think of God as this guy who is in the clouds and he's way up there. I mean, we talk about him and he made the galaxies in the sky and stars, and even on this earth, he made vast, deep oceans that we haven't seen the bottom of, and he's made mountains that stick up through the clouds, and it's all insane and it's all crazy. How could the God who made all of that care about little old me, little old Mr. Stanford, right? But that's the crazy thing, is that he does care, and he does really care about what we're going through, because he's been there, and he's done it, and he's been tempted, and he withstood it. In a story where he was pushed to the very edge of what he could withstand, but still stood it all the time, is in Matthew 4. And if we open up, it starts, and it says, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry." So a little bit of background before I go any farther. This was before Jesus started doing all of the crazy miracles, started feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, before he started raising people from the dead, healing the sick. He didn't have huge crowds of people following him. He didn't have everyone treating him like a celebrity everywhere he went. He was just a guy. And as just a guy, he had a few people who he went around with, some friends, some disciples. But he left them, and he went to the wilderness because he was about to start doing all these crazy things. And he needed some time to pray, to center himself on the crazy things that he was about to do, to kind of rest. And so he was doing that so he could pray, so he could worship God. And he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, which means he didn't eat for 40 days and 40 nights. And I don't know about y'all, but if I don't eat lunch one day, I'm cranky and irritated and grumpy. My entire life is miserable because I'm so hungry. But Jesus did that for 40 days and 40 nights. He was out in the wilderness by himself. And so if we keep reading, it says this. Then the tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell those stones to become bread." Think about that. He could have just snapped his fingers and all of the rocks around him would become bread. He could eat, he would be filled up, he would be satisfied. But that would be taking the easy way out, right? Taking the easy way out instead of going through what he had to go through in the wilderness. And so keep reading, and it says, Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." What this is saying is that it would have been a sin to just snap his fingers and create bread. And while we might not have the abilities to just change things and snap our fingers and make things happen, we do have the ability to take the easy way out, and we're tempted by that all the time. Maybe taking the easy way out for you is lying to your parents instead of telling them hard truth, or copying someone's homework, or cheating on a quiz because you didn't study enough or you didn't do it at home the night before. Maybe it's not listening to authority who tells you to do something because you'd rather just not listen to them because you think what you know is right. These are all ways to take the easy way out, and there's temptations that we face every single day. And if we're not living with integrity like Jesus was, it's a temptation that we're going to fall into. And so we can keep reading, and it says, "Then the devil," or it says, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Yeah, I remember. All right. It continues, says, "Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. 'If you are the Son of God,' he said, 'throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command the angels concerning you, and they will lift you up with their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against the stone.'" The devil was tempting Jesus by telling him because he knew God, because he was with God, nothing bad would happen to him. And I think that's something we can tell ourselves a lot. We can tell ourselves that, "Oh, I'm a Christian, and so I can do bad things, and I can make up for it, I can recover. Maybe I'll go and say this mean thing, but then I'll pray a lot tonight, and I'll read my Bible, and it'll be fine. Like, it doesn't worry, it's not going to affect me. I have forgiveness, God's going to forgive me, everything's great." But that's not how it works. If that's how it works, this will be perfect. Nothing bad will be happening because we can just pray it all away. But our actions have consequences. Everything we do can affect someone negatively. And just because we know Jesus and just because we know that God's going to forgive us doesn't mean that these kind of actions are okay. And so we keep reading, and it says, "It is also written, 'Do not put your Lord God to the test.'" So Jesus turned down the temptation one more time. Continues, "Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. 'All this I'll give you,' he said, 'if you will bow down and worship me.'" See, this is where it's easy to make a comparison. This is where it's easy to take these two things and kind of put them together. So in our lives, we're probably not going to be tempted to bow down and literally worship the devil. But we are tempted to take the things of this world that give us momentary joy and momentary pleasure. Maybe that's taking something that's not yours. Like I said earlier, maybe that's cheating so momentarily you'll feel like that grade can fill you up. Maybe that's gossiping, putting someone else down to raise yourself up. These are all worldly things that we can do, worldly things that are going to make ourselves feel better, but that have consequences, that can hurt someone else, that can do something to someone else. And if we're falling victim to these things, if we're not living with integrity, we're not going to be able to complete the mission that we have for ourselves in this world. We're not going to complete what God set before us because we're going to harm others and we're going to harm ourselves. And so we keep reading and it finishes. It says, "Jesus said to him, 'Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only.' Then the devil left them and angels came and attended him." So what does this story have to do with integrity? I kind of talked about it a little bit as I went along. But Jesus was out in the wilderness alone with no one around him. There was no one to watch what was happening. If he chose to get into sin, to temptation, it wouldn't have negatively affected anyone directly. He wouldn't have been hurting anyone. but his mission wouldn't have been complete. Jesus came down to earth for one thing, and that was to live a perfect life, so that he could die on the cross, so that he could take all of our sin from us once and for all, so that we could be forgiven, so that we could have a relationship with him, so that we could live with God forever. And if in the wilderness he would have given up, if he would have fallen into temptation, if he didn't live his life with integrity, that mission would not have been completed, right? He gave up all of heaven, all that for one thing, and he had to complete it. And his eyes never wavered from that mission. And our mission on life isn't to be perfect, but we do all have a mission in this life and in this world. If we read the verse from Proverbs, starting in verse 26, it says, "Give careful thought to the path of your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." It means keep your gaze straight ahead. It means don't let yourself look left or right and be tempted, be distracted. It means think carefully about your actions, about the things you do. Every single thing you do can affect someone positively or negatively, whether you think so or not, whether you're going to get in trouble for it or not. It's all so important to keep your gaze straight ahead, to make sure that you are really thinking about these actions and really thinking about living with integrity. The verse finishes up, "Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." Your mission in life can be to be a really good friend, to be a great encourager, to be a great listener, to really lift people up. Whatever it is, God has a grand, incredible mission, incredible purpose for you. And if you're falling away from that, if you're not living with integrity, if you're letting yourself do these things that you're being tempted to do because you think it's not really going to have an effect, that's wrong. And that's falling away from what you're meant to do. And I know that's hard. That's really, really hard. But in the midst of that being hard, we know that we have someone who's gone through it too. See, Jesus came down to earth and he walked through every single thing that we do. And he fought this temptation with scripture, and that's a weapon that we have. But also he's just someone we can talk to, someone we can listen to, someone who wants to listen to us. That's the beauty about him being 100% God but 100% human, is that whenever you are struggling with these things, whenever you are being tempted, you're not alone. You have people around you at school, but you also have Jesus who wants to walk through these things with you, who wants to talk to you. And so that's what I have for y'all today. I'm going to pray real quick, and then we're going to worship a little more.